Hello and welcome. Another edition, very exciting edition of Coach's Corner, where each and every Thursday, Coach Dave Serrano and myself get to talk to college coaches from around the country. Coach Serrano is currently en route to Omaha to join his son Parker, who is the first base coach of the Tennessee University of Tennessee volunteer program, who is playing in the national championship. But today we are joined by the one of the Mount Rushmore coaches of college baseball, and I really am honored that he took some time to join us today. Coach Paul Mainieri, the winningest active Division I head baseball coach in the country, formerly of Notre Dame, formerly of LSU, and now current head coach of the University of South Carolina, Paul Mainieri. Paul, thank you so much for joining me today.
Walter, it's great to be with you. It's great to be back in the game. I took a little 3-year hiatus, but I'm recharged and ready to go.
One of the best stories that I've ever had the opportunity to take part in is spending 2 hours with Coach Mainieri Sr. in Hoover, Alabama. Your dad and I sat and talked college baseball in Hoover in 2013, and it's something that has stuck with me for all this time. And really, a great baseball family, great baseball men. And I'm sure you're excited, but I'd love to know, and I'm sure people want to know, what brought you back? Like, you have a storied, successful career. What brought you back to Columbia, South Carolina?
Well, first of all, Walter, thank you for bringing up my father. Anytime people talk about my dad, it just brings a smile to my face. I miss him terribly. He passed 5 years ago, and he was a big part of my career. He was a tremendous coach himself. When he retired from coaching, he was generally regarded as the greatest junior college coach of all time. First junior college coach to 1,000 wins and a national championship. I think he had three other second or third place finishes, and then had about 35 former players make it to the big leagues. So that was the environment that I grew up in Miami, Florida. I grew up in that dugout at Miami-Dade Community College. And when I watched my father do his thing, I watched the way the players reacted to him and understood at an early age the impact my father was having on those players' lives. And that was when I decided I wanted to go into coaching. I went to my father and told him that. I think I was 14 years old at the time. And I said, Pop, I want to do what you did, what you are doing. I want to be a college baseball coach someday. And he said, well, if you want to do that, then you have to do it for the right reasons. And the right reasons are not to make money. It's not for prestige. It's not for, popularity. It's not even because you love the game of baseball. It's because you want to help young people grow as people, as baseball players, and as people, and learn lessons that are going to carry them through the rest of their lives. And so that has always been my guiding light in my coaching career. Now, I started at a very small school, St. Thomas University in Miami, and nobody really knew we had a baseball program. And I went from there to where I was the first civilian baseball coach at the United States Air Force Academy. And we didn't really have a lot of pressure on us there either, although the pressure was to help those cadets learn to be leaders and learn how to compete successfully. Because of course, on a baseball field, winning and losing happens, and it's not the end of the world. But in war, there is no substitute but to win, and they have to know how to compete, and they know how to lead. Have to know how to lead others and deal with the pressure of the job that they would have in the service. And then I went from there to Notre Dame and then on to LSU. So the pressure to win ratcheted up with each passing job. But I never really lost sight of why I went into coaching, and that was to make an impact on young people's lives and try to help them become better baseball players. The way I always looked at it is, this is coming out of my father's mouth, was that a baseball field was a laboratory for gifted athletes, for gifted baseball players, much like gifted biology students have a lab or gifted chemistry students have a lab. And this is our lab to help these players to develop those God-given talents that they have to their fullest potential, so that maybe they could take it on to another level and even become major league ball players. But if they don't don't make that goal, or even if they do, when they're out of baseball, those lessons that they learned about how to work hard, how to work as a team, how to deal with adversity, how to deal with success, all the qualities that we teach young people, that they will then carry them through into the rest of their lives to be successful husbands and fathers and successful in whatever business venture that they so partake. So you ask, why did I come back into it? I missed that. Yes, I missed the big games, and I missed winning championships, and I missed, the everything about the job, practically the grind of it all. But what I really missed was having an impact on young people's lives. And so when I had this opportunity, well, I had a couple of other opportunities in the last couple of years, but I just didn't feel like the situations were right for me. And so, declined, to go do those. But this year, I'm feeling that much better. I had gotten out of coaching because I had some health issues particularly with my neck, and after two surgeries and a couple of other procedures, I'm feeling so much better now that it just was hard for me to sit on the sideline and watch everybody else doing it, and I missed it. And so when Ray Tanner reached out to me, and I looked at this situation here at South Carolina, it reminded me an awful lot of my job at LSU. You have a very passionate fan base. You got a beautiful stadium. You have history and tradition in the program. What's not to like? It's back in the Southeastern Conference, where the best players and best coaches are, and you want to go out there and test yourself against them. So I'm sure some people think I'm probably crazy for doing it. I've really accomplished everything I ever set out to do in my coaching career. I've been very fortunate, but I just missed the daily grind, and it's particularly I missed working with the players. And so when Ray offered me this opportunity, I said, let's go for it.
Well, certainly Coach Tanner and his two national championships with the South Carolina Gamecocks, guys like Christian Walker, Grayson Griner, Joey Pancake, the list goes on. And I know that you recognize and remember those names. But
Yeah.
obviously, what I would like to have you discuss, that notch that the SEC student athlete, that level above, it is a very unique conference. One only has to look to this upcoming College World Series, and you have Tennessee and Texas A&M. That's a weekend series that you are all too familiar with. You know what it's like being at LSU and at the box, and obviously having played in Columbia. Talk a little bit about the underbelly of the SEC. A certain student athlete, both mentally and physically, is required in order to be successful as an SEC program. So, can you talk a little bit about that separator of high school athletes when they get to a conference, or portal athletes when they come into an SEC program?
Walter, when I took over at LSU back in 2007 season, at that point, only 6 national championships had been won by SEC schools. Georgia was the first. They won one, I believe, in 1990 or 91.
Yeah, 90.
And then LSU won the next 5. So all the championships had been won by LSU and Georgia. We won in 2009. So at that point now, there were 7 championships won, 6 by LSU and 1 by Georgia. But look at what has happened ever since 2009. South Carolina won the next 2. Florida's won. Vanderbilt's won 2. Who am I forgetting? There had to be somebody else. But a lot of teams are playing for championships, and this year we're going to have a brand new national champion, and it's going to be an SEC school. But the way that the Southeastern Conference has grown is, this is my point. The way it was tough when I first got here, when I first got into the SEC, but what it is now is unbelievable. You have the best players in the country. You have the best coaches in the country. You have the best facilities in the country, probably the best weather overall, although we have our moments. We have the most passionate fan bases.
Oh, yeah.
We have the most media coverage. I mean, this is why I call the Southeastern Conference the major leagues of college baseball. When you think of the major leagues itself, Every one of those teams is filled with major league caliber ball players. Well, every SEC school is filled with SEC caliber ball players. The worst team in the major leagues is still going to win 60 major league baseball games. The worst team in the SEC is still going to win 10 SEC baseball games. The best teams, well, let me say this, the uh, the best teams in the SEC are still going to lose 10 games.
Right.
So it's what you do in the other 10 games that are going to determine where you finish in the standings. The major leagues is the same way. All the teams are going to lose 60. All the teams are going to win 60. What do they do in the remaining 40 games is going to determine what they're going to do in terms of whether they make the playoffs and have a chance to play in the World Series or not. So the competition day in and day out is just like the major leagues on a slightly lower level. And you got to know how to handle your success and you got to know how to handle your failures. And sometimes that's what separates the teams because the talent across the board from team to team is almost equal. You know, everybody's got two or three assistant coaches and a head coach out there recruiting like crazy. You know, the transfer portal now, you have quick access to fill voids on your team. And it just takes a very special kind of ball player to succeed in the Southeastern Conference. If you can't, if you're intimidated by facing 95 to 98, 99 mile an hour fastballs, then this is not the league for you. If you're intimidated as a pitcher by facing the best hitters in the country, this is not the league for you. If you're intimidated by playing in front of big crowds and being under the microscope with the media or playing in front of a lot of professional baseball scouts all the time, this is not the league for you. And I vote what I tell recruits is if you want to be good as a baseball player, then you ought to go somewhere else. If you want to be great, you go to the Southeastern Conference because that's where you challenge yourself against the very best. You find out how good you are, and you find out whether or not you're going to be good enough someday to play on that television set against the best players in the world. So the SEC is unlike any other conference, and this is with all due respect to the ACC, whom I have many friends coaching those teams, and I think it's a great league. Um, just the SEC is just a little bit different than everything else that I've ever encountered.
You know, you when you rattled off all of those College World Series participants, Ole Miss, Mike Bianco, and then you have
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. So it is a grind. And I can remember vividly Aaron Nola versus Tyler Beede, the energy in the stadium. I can remember the scouts, the anticipation. I try to tell parents when you're trying to prepare to watch your son under those bright lights, you must understand the ones with the steady heartbeat, the ones that want to be great, as you just alluded to. And I remember your dad saying the exact same thing. There are players that want to be good. There are players that want to be developed. And then there are players that want to be the best that they're capable of becoming. And those are the ones that you want in between the lines during the heat of battle. When you're
That's exactly
recruiting,
right.
what is it that you find to be a separator? What are some of, whether it's tools, whether it's mindset, makeup, what are some of the separators when it comes to recruiting at an SEC school?
Well, the first thing you mentioned obviously is a necessity, and that's the tools. I mean, you have to have the ability, Walter. You can't hide it if you don't run fast enough, or you don't throw the ball hard enough off the mound, or you don't, hit the ball with consistency or with enough force. You know, some of the biggest differences in the SEC versus other leagues are the way a center fielder runs the ball down in the gaps. What typically would be a double in another conference is going to be an out in the SEC. Um, so you have to have the talent. That's just one little example, okay? But what I look for is something that makes a player different. You can't define the word it, but when players have it
Right.
and they just have that something special quality about themselves, the way they carry themselves. It's the way they carry themselves on the field with hustle and a air of confidence about themselves. I'm not talking about flamboyant. I'm not talking about a show off or bring the attention to me. There's just certain kids that when they're out there on the baseball field, they carry themselves like a pro. They carry themselves with a different confidence level than other kids do. And I actually like to see a player fail because I want to see what he does if his first two at bats, he didn't have good at bats. I want to see what he does in that third and fourth at bat with the game on the line. I want to see a pitcher that goes to a 3-0 count and whether he just gives up and walks the guy on the next pitch or does he come back fighting and get the strike one and then strike two, the kid fouls the ball off. And then the third pitch, he gets him to fly out to center field. That shows me that a kid has something different about him than just his tools and just the physical talents that he has. I love to see kids hustle. I love to see kids play with passion. If they really love the sport, they don't just talk about it, but they just love it because they show that they love it by the way that they play the game. Alex Bregman, when I saw him play when he was 16 years old, when they took the field, he was the first guy out at his position. And when the inning ended, he hustled his way into the dugout. He ran out every ball as hard as he possibly could. He attempted to get every ball. He dove for balls. He just played the game like he was going 100 miles an hour with his hair on fire. And I just love passionate people. And those are the kind of kids that I surrounded myself with. I'm not talking about, in our day, we called them hot dogs. I don't know what the kids call them now, when they're trying to bring attention to themselves. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about people that genuinely love the game. They show respect for their opponents. They play the game the right way, and they have the ultimate self-confidence in themselves.
Is there something that you can pinpoint with regard to what makes the game so much different, almost a better version? What is the one area that we can kind of point to and say that's what made college baseball take off? Social media, television. I mean, it is a big deal now, not only for Paul Mainieri to be announced as the head coach of South Carolina, it's on television. There's an awareness to the athletes. That was never like that maybe 10, 15 years ago. But today, college baseball is literally, I think, one of the most exciting times of the year during the regional, super regional. Is there anything that you think can be attributed to the success or the rise of college baseball?
Well, I think the Southeastern Conference's role in that is pivotal. You don't go to a campus in the SEC that doesn't have a beautiful baseball facility. I mean, 15 years ago, the facilities that were considered the best are now considered the ones down by the bottom of the
Right.
list. Everybody's building these. I'm sitting in my office right now, Walter, while I'm looking out the window here, and I see this beautiful Founders Park. It was built the same year we rebuilt the new Alex Box Stadium in Baton Rouge. And how many stadiums have been built or renovated since the Founders Park and Alex Box Stadium were done? I mean, you got Florida, you got Ole Miss, you got Mississippi State,
Yep.
going down the list, right? So you first of all the investment into the investment into college baseball by these different schools. And I tell you, I know, and I used to, when I was representing LSU, I would tell this story all the time. There was a day when I went to LSU as a student, okay, in the fall of 1975, 76 season. The baseball coach at LSU, his main job was he was the equipment manager for the football team. Wonderful man named Jimmy Smith, okay? But he wasn't even out there at fall practice. He was a part time baseball coach. Now, you think about that. That was how long ago? 40 years ago, okay, or so. Obviously, the SEC's been good earlier than 40 years ago,
Right.
okay? But what happened was Ron Polk went to Mississippi State from Georgia Southern, and he forced Mississippi State's administration to take baseball serious because he went around the state and promoted baseball and got people to come to the games. And all of a sudden, you're getting crowds of 4,000 or 5,000 people at Mississippi State baseball games. Well, then in 1983, Skip Bertman took over at LSU. And Skip had worked for Ron Frazier down at the University of Miami, who was a marketing and promotions
Guru.
guru, right? So Skip was a great baseball man. Frazier was a tremendous, marketer, promotions guy, and together they were a tremendous team. Well, then Skip went to LSU, and he became both those guys. Not only was he a great baseball man on the field, but he also knew the secret to getting the community interested in the baseball program. He went out and started doing clinics and uh, just going all over taking the LSU team all over the state whenever they were winning national championships. And people would come out to Natchitoches, Louisiana, or Lake Charles, or Hammond, or wherever, because the LSU baseball team was there. Well, that grew baseball in those different communities there. And so I think what happened was a lot of athletic directors and presidents on campuses in our conference looked and saw what was happening in Starkville, looked what was happening in Baton Rouge, and said, "Man, I wonder if we start to invest in our program with our facility, with hiring a good coach, with giving them budgets to be able to go out and recruit with and put them in nice uniforms and so forth, could we start drawing those kind of crowds on our campus as well, where maybe even baseball might become self-sufficient in the end?" The old adage in
Right.
business, make money, you got to spend money.
Right.
And I think that's what all these other schools did. They took the lead of Mississippi State and LSU from Ron Polk and Skip Bertman, and now you go to every campus in our league and you have beautiful facilities. Everybody's got an outstanding coach. They've got full coaching staffs. They've got budgets to be able to recruit with. And it just has made the place so much more marketable to attract really good ball players. So now you're seeing kids in droves coming from California, from Arizona, some from Texas, certainly from the north, coming to the Southeastern Conference to all the schools. Now, every one of the schools has terrific ball players, and now you put them out on the field, pitting them against the other team that has terrific ball players. Both teams are managed by coaches that know what they're doing. They have great assistant coaching staffs. They got support staff, and now it becomes an attractive entity to the television stations. The College World Series is a phenomenal event, as you know,
Yes, indeed.
and it's just that snowball that it just keeps going and going and going and makes this league unbelievable. And it's for the best players in the country.
Well, that is absolutely. I can remember when Ron Polk, when you had Will the Thrill and Rafael Palmeiro, and I mean all of those guys in the early to mid '80s. That's really when everything started to really go boom, and it's kind of a foundation to what we see today. One last question, Coach, because I know you're busy. I really would love if you could share, if you could talk to the current high school players of tomorrow, and the future college players of tomorrow, what advice would you give them in order for them to be better prepared for what lies ahead at the college level as far as from a baseball experience?
Well, of course, technology has entered into our game in a big way. But, and look, I think that technology has its place. I mean, I'm not a dinosaur where I say, oh, you can't learn something from the different, I'm not going to mention all of them because I'll
Right.
leave something out, but all the different technologies that are available to us now. Um, but what I do see as a mistake, in my opinion, is when the kids are depending solely on that.
Yes.
It's still a very instinctive game, and one of the criticisms I would have is that when I get a ball player to uh, attend the school that I'm coaching, of course, the last 15 years it was at LSU, but now it's at South Carolina. I haven't yet taken our freshmen on, but sometimes I think that they don't have the instincts for the game because they think the game is so technical. That everything has to go by the numbers, and you got to do this and you got to do that, and they don't understand quite as well what it takes to win games. Base running, backing up bases. Knowing when to try to take an extra base. We're depending so much upon hitting home runs because exit velocity is so important. Yet when you want to win a game, you want that hitter up there with two strikes on himself, trying to hit the ball to the opposite field and fouling off pitches and making the pitcher work and ultimately winning the battle with a walk or an opposite field base hit. The championship teams still have some of those kind of players on their team. Yes, they've got the guy that can hit the ball out of the park, but on the mound, and yes, they've got the guy on the mound that can dominate a game, but they also have the guy that's got the good breaking ball or the good changeup, makes the big pitch at a key time. Again, we go back to the word it. It's important to develop those kind of qualities that make you stand out, maybe not necessarily just with your tools, maybe not just necessarily, with your exit velocities or your spin rates or whatever it is, okay? But to love the game, and if you love the game, you learn how to play the game as a winning ball player by combining the technology with the love of the game, the work ethic, and uh, learning the game from people that really know what it takes to win by being inquisitive and asking questions. Don't come to college thinking you have all the answers, but prepare yourself the best you can. I think it's important. Excuse me. I think if you're going to join the SEC, you have to be physically fit. We have good athletes. Yes, we have great baseball players, but we have great athletes in the SEC. Guys that are strong and that can, have bats. They have bat speed and they can hit the ball with authority and they can run with good speed. And then pitchers that do something that's excellent. Some guys can increase their velocity through some of the technology that is available to them and the better training methods that we have now in the game. But some pitchers may not throw 96, 97. There's still a place for them in the SEC if they throw 89 to 92 miles an hour, but they got to know how to pitch on both sides of the plate and up and down and have really good secondary stuff. So the best advice I can give to the players is to develop their talents to the fullest. Use the technology that's available, but don't do it at the expense of losing your instincts for the game. At the end of the day, it's still that guy on the mound 60 feet 6 inches away, and it's a pitcher against a hitter confrontation. And it's also your ability to make plays in the field. And it's your ability to run the bases and those kinds of things. And finally, the two more things that I think are necessary. You got to do well in school. If you do well in school and you get your grades and you're NCAA qualified, but even if you're better than that, if you're a good student, I know when I look for players, I want to see their transcripts. I want to see how much discipline they have and whether or not they take everything that they do in life seriously, including their academics and their education. I would rather recruit a kid with a 3.5 grade point average than a kid with a 2.2 grade point average, because when I'm coaching him, I want him to have the cerebral ability to absorb what we're coaching and then go out there and apply it. So school is important. And then finally, I've used the word passion before, but I want kids to have fun playing the game.
Amen.
If they have fun and they love what they're doing, then generally speaking, they're going to play it better, and they're going to handle the ups and downs better, and they're going to handle the coaching the coaching, whether the coach is challenging them or patting them on the back. They're going to handle all that stuff better if their attitude is to enjoy the game and feel very grateful for the opportunities that they have.
Well, I want to say college baseball is better with a Coach Mainieri involved as a coach on that top step. I'm really happy and thrilled that you're back inside the dugout, and I'm really happy you're inside the SEC. I believe it's a great conference in my heart. I love all the campuses that I was fortunate enough to visit. So, welcome back. Best of luck in Columbia to you and obviously to your coaching staff, Terry Rooney, Monty Lee. You have a great coaching staff, tremendous recruiters. I know you're going to do great things in Columbia, but welcome back, Coach.
Thank you, Walter. I appreciate that very much.
Very, very welcome. And folks, these are the types of conversations that will offer you as a family, as well as your student athlete, insight and information as to how to proceed with regard to college baseball, college recruiting, and becoming a better student athlete from the young ages all the way through college. Coach, thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Good to be with you.